Yes. So triumphant Tuesday to all of you. I forget which day of the week it is, like most of us, because we're all working from home majority of the time. So let's do a couple, well, not everybody, but some people. So let's go ahead and get started. FYI, I'm super interactive. You'll be able to jump in the chat box. We can communicate. You can come off mute. But we're here tonight to learn about how to start a freight broker company. This is part one. Part two will be on Thursday. So as you can see from the image, I got some old cabs that are here. They've really redesigned what these vehicles look like in present day. However, nevertheless, this is what we're here for. I will not PowerPoint you to death. I will not give you a lot of those moments, but just know that a few will pop in here and there. So as we know, the trucking agent industry, is always needed, right? Even in the midst of COVID-19, one thing stayed on the road. What was that? Come on, talk to me. Chat it up. Come on.
Trucks.
Trucks. Yes, it never stops. Trucks always are on the go. So since they're in such a high demand, right, that industry that does not slow down, the rates begin to drop. So do not be discouraged about that. You know, the economy changes a lot of things because now you have more truckers, which means more competitive rates. But nevertheless, it's still needed. So let me see who's in the room. Who in the room is already in logistics? Some form of logistics.
I am.
Okay, we've got one. And that's my dad, buddy, Ricky Shine. Woo, woo. You know, I'm an Army combat veteran too. And I see some other names too, some other folks that I've got to interact with. So this is great. Anybody else in logistics already?
I am. Soprano Coatney.
All right, awesome. Let me go back really quick to Ricky. Ricky, are you able to share what in logistics you're specifically doing? And then we're going to go to Trepane, and he can actually share his as well.
I actually own my own limousine company. I've owned it since 2017. And I also work in a form of a little bit of logistics in supply and services for the North Carolina National Guard for our U.S. Property and Fiscal Office.
Impressive, thanks. Trepane, what you got? Which part of logistics are you in? I know you came off mute for me.
Yeah, so actually, I also have my own limousine company, like Mr. Shine, me and my dad. We're in two different states. However, I'm a GS-14 right now with the Department of Defense. I'm a retired Army vet as well. I retired 3 years ago out of Fort Bragg. So yeah, we also have a consulting company we just launched in January to link up small businesses with government contracts. So we're doing a lot of logistics, and I do logistics on a daily basis here. But yes, ma'am, it's awesome. I love it.
This is exciting. So let me tell you why I asked you guys to share if anybody's in it. Like I know I said some stuff in the chat, so you totally can communicate with each other, right? Because you never know who's in your room, and I always say you never know where your next blessing lies. So even though I own a consulting firm, we have a logistics division. And so this is great for me to also hear because I'm all about building other businesses and making the connection and being the connector. So this is great. Who else? I know we got some chat stuff coming up here. We've got some working on it, trucks. Oh, what kind of trucks? There's so many variations. Vehicle transport. Talk to me. What kind of trucks are we already operating with? I don't see anything in there.
This is Marcus. I have a 2020 Ram 3500 series of dually that I pull a 3-car hauler with.
Ooh, okay, so I'm gonna drop this nugget really quick. I was at my dealership not too long ago, and they were talking about how they always bring on folks that can transport cars. So just FYI, don't forget about the dealerships. No matter how big the brand, they are looking for folks. So FYI, drop that nugget. What other kind of, thanks Marcus for sharing. What other types of trucks? I think some people say trucks, because there's so many variables. What types of trucks are you guys utilizing or equipment?
I use a 26-foot box truck right now. That's what we're starting off with our fleet because we're just getting started, probably about 4 months in it now. But I have a history of driving rigs. I've been driving ever since 2007. So
very nice.
I can use
so can you tell me what specifically you want to haul? Is there a specific industry that you want to haul for with the box truck?
Right now we're just doing just generic logistics, freight, hauling freight back and forth. We haven't we took interest in a load board, which is what everybody uses now. However, we were blessed to have someone reach out to us and say, hey, I got this dedicated run, can you do that? So that's what we're doing right now, is a dedicated run, 7 days a week, day and night. So it's pretty good right now. Looking to do, get a tractor for hauling, doing extended loads a little bit further, and possibly entering into the hauling cars as well.
Perfect. I was going to say, it sounds like some similarities here. I wanted to ask that question because I just had a call this evening with one of my business partners in New York, and he was speaking about the number of box trucks that we need to continue to add to our to our line. Because, why guys? COVID-19 changed the world as we know it. But now we're on the side of we need to make sure we're still supplying people. So supplies need to be distributed. So that's what I was asking. So don't forget the healthcare industry, Sapphire, with your box trucks, because that's been a big one. Something just popped in the chat. I want to make sure I'm here for you guys. So we're going to get into the nitty gritty, but I want to make sure. Not sure which one's the purpose. Maybe a dump truck. Dump trucks are great, right? I would highly recommend, specifically what industry, what niche you want to use the dump trucks for. I cannot tell you the number of construction meetings that I go to, and there's so many people in the room that's got dump trucks, right? So all 50 people in there clearly can't get this bid. All 50 people can compete for it, but know specifically, if it's dump trucks and you're doing the, if you only want to do it with federal government, like someone mentioned DOD, well, what is federal government? Is that the VA hospitals, right? Because they're all over. Is it that? Is it specifically, or is it local government? Local government's forever doing some type of construction. Know specifically where, so that you can start to get those type of contracts, build your performance, and then that adds to your portfolio. And now they're willing to say you've been working and you've been doing this thing for some time, so you're building upon yourself. So super, super great. All right, guys. So our time here together, I'm going to show you how I've broken down this thing. We're not going to make it through all four tonight. We're actually going to do the first two, which is business foundations and freight broker own authority. And then we're going to leave some time for some Q&A. So super simple, but we're going to get into it because it gets a little tedious with the back and forthness that's created in this industry. So of course, for business foundations, you need a business name. If you don't have a business name, you need to start brainstorming that. Why is that important? Because that's your brand. That's what people know. That's what people carry forth. That's what's going to represent you when you're not present. Find a business name and making sure it's not a name. I didn't realize how long my name of my consulting company is compared to my coaching company until later on. So find something that connects with you, but make sure it's something that people can remember. So the name of my consulting firm is Crown for Success Global Consulting, LLC. How long is that, right? Super huge. So we had to use an acronym for folks that are not familiar with us. So most folks just say Crown for Success and they know the connection. So think of that. I know people that get into the industry of trucking, they love to use the initials of their children or their grandchildren. That's cool. It looks good on the side of a truck, but are people going to remember you? Are you going to stand out? Are they going to be able to connect the name? Will this be recorded and made available after? That is a Sarah question, but when she pops back on, you can ask.
Are you okay with me recording it?
Yeah, fine with me.
Okay.
At this point, Uncle Sam has put you all over the world, so
Okay, I'm just making sure.
thank you for asking. You sound like the lady earlier today when I was at the VA hospital here in Durham. I live in Durham, by the way. And she said, what's your social? And I said, the other lady was like, are you just gonna say that out loud? Listen, once you serve in the military, your social's all over the world. Like, who are you hiding from? Okay, so be really cautious of the name that you choose. The second thing is please, 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 please. We get so excited about running a business and owning a business that we don't do our foundations. So please make sure you have a legalized entity. Go to the North Carolina Secretary of State website. Please, please, please go to the North Carolina Secretary of State website. Once you're there, click on I want to and click on business. Top thing, guys. I know you've worked hard to create a name, but can you please check and make sure it's available? There's an option for that. Check and make sure the name is available. And if it is available, click on Start a Business. 4 easy steps. Okay, SHF Logistics LLC. I like it. It's short. So here's another thing. When you name your company, find a way to make it, hey, Indiana, find a way to make it catchy, right? So people, I use my name very, very, very frequently. So when I use it, I make it in a way that people can remember. Because how many people do you talk to a day and how many people do you actually remember their name if they're a new person? Very minimal, right? So when people say, who are you? And I say, I'm Diana Nicole Brown. And they're like, okay. By the time they leave me, they probably start thinking about, whatever else is on their agenda for the day. So the way that I make folks remember me is I say, other than personality, is I say Diana like the princess, Graham like the cracker. Does it make sense? Not necessarily, but I bet you they remember me. And I have folks over here who can attest to it. So make sure that sticks out so they can connect the two. All right, another thing I need you guys to do, because in order to have a business banking account, you have to have an EIN. So go to the IRS EIN. When you go on the IRS website, this is the employee identification number. That's basically like your social security number for you. This is your number for your company. You gotta have that. People want to show up because I don't want you to mix your funds. This is business that we're talking about, not personal. Yes, you're owning it, but we need it separated. So once you got that in, think about your mailing address. Do you want to use your home address for your mailing address? Some people do. That's cool. That's your prerogative. If not, think about a post office box. Think about a UPS box. UPS actually has little boxes in there. You pay a monthly fee, and it gives you a real address. Another thing is the places like WeWork, those types of establishments where people do co-working. Those are places that you can also purchase a mailing address. So think about, where do you want people to track you? Do you want it to show up and it's your home address? Think about that. Business banking. This is where it gets challenging. You want to be able to track things that you can write off on your taxes, right? I mean, I know we all want to get to the point where we can be a Jeff Bezos and we can be Nike where we never pay taxes. Or is that just me? Like, give me an emoji. Is anybody else not want to pay taxes? Because I don't want to pay. Especially when folks making multi-millions, billions of dollars and ain't paying 10 cents. Nevertheless, make sure, somebody said yes, thank you. Make sure that you have the right kind of banking that's going to work for you. So when you go to set up this business banking account with this N, the N is needed to get the business banking account for your company, right? Think about what kind of fees do you want to pay per month. So there's different banks that offer different business banking. There's First Citizens, there is PNC, there's Bank of America, Wells Fargo. Think about, really research their websites, guys, because some of them have so many fees per month if certain balances aren't left in the account, you end up spending more just to maintain a bank account that's not necessarily needed, right? So I want you to be careful and think about that. Your website. I cannot tell you the number of people I talk to that do not have a website. I'm not suggesting that your website has to be pearly and be with all these flashing icons, but you have to have a World Wide Web presence. You can use places like GoDaddy. You can use Weebly. And if anybody wants to put these things in the chat for folks, that's totally fine. You can take copious notes. Weebly is another one. There's so many variables that you don't have to spend a lot of money. Along with your website, could you please have an email address? Wix is also a free one. Very good. I think the basic plan is free. People are putting banks they use in there. I highly recommend First Citizens Bank. If you have one of those local, because it's a North Carolina-based bank, you can use them anywhere. You can always swipe your debit card. But the way that they support you and they will make sure that they back you if something happens, and they don't have these crazy fees. Navy Federal is good. I'm not sure though if Navy Federal allows you now to have business accounts. At one point they did not. USAA does not allow business account. State Employees Credit Union does not. So somebody said they do now, so perfect. Check out Navy Federal. That's a really good bank. Bank of America does. Be careful of their fees as well. Excuse me. So yes, those are things that have in place. Another thing that you may want to consider while you're setting up your website, and I spoke about email address. Gmail is cool, right? AOL shows that you're dated. Hotmail and Yahoo does the same for people that's looking towards your company. You can go to Google and create a business account and pay $5 a month to get a business email address. Do it. It's really simple. It gives you a professional presence, right? So if I was to call you and say, hey, I've got this dedicated route I want to send to you, and you send me an email address back at Yahoo, I'm gonna say you don't even take your business serious enough to pay $5 a month to have a business account. How do I know you're gonna move my freight appropriately? Think how the shipper's thinking, right? Think about the person you're trying to connect with. When you're also thinking about, somebody said, when you're also thinking about the email address, I want you guys to spend some time to think about the phone number. Oftentimes, people use their personal sales for their business. The reason that's going to be challenging here is because your phones are going to be going off and on, your phone off and on, because you've got shippers and you've got carriers. You are literally the in-between man or woman as a broker. So you may want to consider a home line, a different phone, something, because the back and forth will become overwhelming. And you don't want to keep putting people on hold. It's just not a good look in this industry. There's online systems that are free. I've seen people use Google Talk. If you don't want to go create a whole nother bill because you want your overhead to stay low. So you have options with that. Let's talk about your phone. Your office setup. Basic supplies. Listen, guys, I want you to keep your overhead low, right? So as you keep your overhead low, think about the best places to shop to get these things. These things I'm getting ready to name, you can go to Walmart, Target, Roses. You can even go to Walgreens for some of these things. Keep your overhead low. That's the objective. So I told you about the phone. When you're thinking about the phone and you're thinking about as the broker, you may want to have some form of a headset. I've seen people use the Apple Pods. People use the big set that comes down with the piece. Have a way that's easier for you that kind of frees up your hands, because you're taking notes all day long because you're trying to connect who? Who are the two people you're connecting? You're the broker. Who are you connecting?
Carriers and shippers.
Carriers and shippers.
Shippers.
That's it. You're that person. So you got to remember, you got all of this coming every day. You need to make sure wherever you're doing this work is an environment where you can thrive. So that means you don't need to be in a place where there's a lot of noise and a lot of chaos, because normally that shipper is in a warehouse. And if their background is loud and your background is loud, how can you hear to make sure you're getting the correct information before they send you the confirmation that you can now send to your carrier? You got to think about your work environment. You got to think about the traffic consistently that's going on. You're going to need some an all-in-one, if you can find an all-in-one. If not, it's totally cool. But that's your printer, your scanner, and your copier. Office Depot is a great place. You can create a business account with them. You've got Staples. You can probably buy a printer at this point off of Amazon, right? If you live in a neighborhood like me, the Amazon truck goes so many times a day. They're clearly delivering. So that's one. You can also look online, guys, and utilize online fax options. I don't know too many people these days that are buying fax machines. If you want one, go ahead and get it. But if not, it's totally okay. You can use an online system. Think about when you do purchase your printer, somebody said Walmart, $50, boom. Also think about this, guys. When you purchase this printer, whether it has multiple functions or whether it just has the one function, think about the ink. Sometimes people get so excited about the type of printer that they got, but you end up with a printer that's $80 per cartridge. Think about the ink. Is this ink that you're gonna have refilled? Is this ink that you're just gonna purchase new cartridges every time? That gets pricey, so think through that. When we think about the paper, I highly recommend, if you have like one of those accounts to one of those bulk stores, like a Sam's, a Costco, what's another one? BJ's, any of those types of places, buy them by the case and be done. Now, some people say, I don't need that kind of paper. That's totally fine if you don't. But there will come a point where you're gonna have to figure out a filing system, whether you're pregnant or you gotta have a digital one. If you got a digital one, you need to plan for some type of cloud service to make sure that it's stored, unless you got an external hard drive and you're just gonna keep making sure that's updated every day. It's all a part of your system. If you're doing printed documents for your office, you're gonna need a filing cabinet. Do not, hear me and hear me well, do not go out here and buy one of these $150 filing cabinets. No, you go to Habitat for Humanity or a thrift store, and you find one for about $15. You clean it up with some good Lysol. As long as it's functioning with the drawers, it'll work. I'm trying to keep you with a low overhead so you can get started and function. Paper clips, folders, pens, calculators. Listen, you don't have to get that calculator they made us get in middle or high school. It's, what is it, a Texas Instrument? You can if you choose to, but it's not necessary. You can just get you a basic good one at an office supply store or Walmart. Walmart probably can get it for $10, right? And you need a stapler because you got to keep track of all this stuff. You need a decent computer. A decent computer. I'm not saying go out and get the latest one that Apple just dropped. If that's in your budget, that's great. But if you just get a standard HP or an Azu, or I know Walmart has crazy good prices online sometimes for laptops. I've actually seen people who have made the systems on tablets, right? Because they know they're going to be moving a lot, so they make tablets work for them. Someone said Goodwill refurbished computers. I did not know that. Just learned something new. There's another nugget for you to check out. Internet service. All right. So depending on where you live, of course, you're going to have different providers. If it's Spectrum, I highly recommend, or any of them, I highly recommend that you don't get the lowest option because you're going to need a pretty good rate of speed. The reason I suggest at least a middle grade of internet is because you're consistent. If you're working off of a load board, you're consistently updating that load board. You're reloading it to see what else has been populated in it. If you're doing that, you're changing screens, you're talking to a shipper, so you got to get them the package they want, but you got to get the other things to the like. You can't use that with the modem, the dial-up. So make sure you have a decent one, internet service, along with a decent router. Routers can be pricey, but check out your best buys. Check out your weekly flyers. Every Sunday, most of those companies put out a flyer. It's usually digital. Make sure you go online to price those to make sure they're good ones for you. And I talked about the digital storage. That's when you can do the cloud, you can do the drive, Google Drive. You have options, or you can do external hard drive. And just make sure that you continuously back that thing up because you don't want to lose this, especially if it comes to an audit or it comes to tax time. All right. So we're looking at that. Keep overhead low. Please, please, please stay organized. And you got to make sure that you can maintain a cash flow. Why does that matter, Diana? You need to have some sense of money organization and structure because as the middle person, who do you think is responsible for paying the carrier? Who in this three, the shipper, broker, carrier, who is responsible for paying this carrier? The one that's actually transporting the freight.
Broker.
The broker. So if the broker is responsible, how long does the broker have to pay this carrier after the carrier has dropped off the freight?
Depending on your terms, most time 15, maybe 30 days at the most.
30 days is the industry standard, right? At minimum. I have some folks that pay out every Friday, which is great. Then there's some other folks that use that full 30 days. No matter whichever it is, you are regulated as a broker to make sure that that carrier is paid within 30 days. So if that shipper that you invoiced hasn't paid you yet, it doesn't matter. You gotta pay that carrier. That's why we have to make sure we have really good money management and we make sure that we're staying within compliance. Yeah, I want to make sure you don't forget the 30 days because let me tell you what, you can really be held up for some. You get some real big trouble if you don't meet the 30 days. Okay, so let's move to the second part. Everybody clear though about the business basics. Like these are business foundations. These are things that you have to do before you can move into the freight broker foundation. These are legalized to be a legalized entity to be set in place before you can move towards setting up the paperwork that's needed for that. Everybody still with me? This means yes, this means no, emojis, thumbs up, thumbs down, side faces. Okay, cool. I'm seeing some yeses, so it looks like we got some folks still here. Okay, cool. So the freight broker, I'm talking to you specifically about being a freight broker with your own authority. I'm saying it again, I am talking to you specifically about being a freight broker with your own authority. So there's some administration things that have to take place. These are responsibilities. I told you administratively, you're responsible for invoicing who? Who do you invoice?
Shipper.
Yes, invoice shipper, who do you pay?
Carrier.
Outstanding, you got our motion going down. So, as this middle person, you're the real authority. They're looking to you to be able to get their stuff from a qualified person. So that means you gotta verify that your carrier is legit, right? Because people say, look, say they got a trucking company, ain't got no insurance, ain't registered, not a legalized entity. Do you understand what that comes back and does to you? Really, really bad. So as a freight broker under your own authority, you're gonna need a surety bond. The minimum amount of money, surety bond, is $75,000. You can go on any Google search and find a host of companies that are offering it. It's a surety bond. Somebody can put that in the chat, make sure everybody knows. Surety bond. What this surety bond does is it's saying that if something happens, it's going to cover to pay this carrier. You got to make sure you pay these people. It's your surety bond about this freight, right? Let me tell you what influences a surety bond. Let me ask see if you guys know. Do you know what influences a surety bond? You need these $75,000, but when you're applying for it, what are they checking against you as the broker to qualify for this? Because it's not just given to you. Credit, absolutely. Hopefully you have decent credit. If not, there are two things that surety bonds have been known to do. The company that issues the surety bond, excuse me. One thing that they will do is they will give you a high premium to pay up front, right? Or if your credit is really, really, really low, what they'll say is that we need you to pay it in full, whatever that premium is. So they won't allow you to make the monthly payments on a high premium. So no, your credit is going to be influenced here. It's going to be poor. FYI, I didn't make the rules. Just kind of what we got to deal with. Any questions about surety bonds? Gotta have it set. How much at minimum?
$75K.
$75K. And listen, let me tell you why the surety bond is important. You cannot go to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration and apply for your MC license. You can apply for it, which is a part of becoming a legalized federal freight broker without having that surety bond first. So I would recommend, if you have time tonight, this weekend, depending on how quickly you're thinking about starting this, start immediately to start looking and seeing who's offering it. Hold on, I saw something here on the chat. Sarah usually monitors this one. Where do I get legit trained to be a freight broker? There's a host of different companies. They have different fees, and you just pay your fee and you can take it. Do you have any other insurance? I don't want to give any of the insurance companies out, and I'll tell you why. They vary so much based off of you as an individual. I could tell you that, let's just randomly say Allstate, which I don't know anybody uses them, but if I said Allstate and then you went to them and you had a horrible time and then they wouldn't even, make you the person, give you the insurance that you needed, that wouldn't be good. I highly recommend just doing a Google search because each one of them has their own layout. Are they checking your business credit, or do you have to PG, or do you have to PG or with PC? What is PG or PC? Oh, this is definitely your personal credit. Can you use your business name for bond? Yes, not a problem. Business name, it can go in, but it checks your personal credit because that's the way their system is set up. So you can put your name and then, or your business name, and then your name can be like a code name. Does that make sense? Like the business name's up top and then your names. It's the point of contact, so to speak. Perfect. All right. So surety bond you gotta have is influenced by credit score. So when you go to the Federal Motor, this is a long title. Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So I can put it in the chat. Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. This is where you're gonna apply for your MC license. Yep, FMCSA. Mr. Hall, you are on it. I need to probably hire you for some, type of things. All right, so how do I choose a rep? Courtney, I'm gonna have to talk to you offline because there's so many options for those. There are people that are coming out with those trainings. Like I'm watching people do them every month to every quarter. So it really it's preference again. Gotcha. But not a problem. I can tell some people that I think is great. Another thing, guys, let me go ahead and give you this nugget. Because remember I told you I want to keep your overhead low? YouTube University is what I call YouTube. Amazing. There are so many options off of YouTube of people who have successfully ran freight broking companies that you can literally let their videos play for a couple of days. And the more the lingo and the things start ranking, you'll catch on to it. So this is not a hardcore business. It's just they make these little increment steps that you have to take. So when you're at the FMCSA, excuse me, guys, you want to apply for an MC license, motor carrier license. Now you may say, Diane, I'm not carrying any freight. You're not, but you're in the industry, which means you have to follow the rules. So this application is $300, and it takes approximately 4 to 6 weeks to get your response. $300, and it takes about 4 to 6 weeks to response. Hey, come on, Mr. Howey. I love YouTube. There's so much on YouTube. Not that everything's great, but most of it is. Another thing you need, so there's 3 parts. So there's your surety bond that you have to have first before you can go to apply for your MC license. And then you need you need your UCR, which is your Unified Carrier Registration. So this is where you're gonna go for that. North Carolina, ncdot.gov, ncdot.com. This is your Department of Transportation. I don't know why I just had a brain fart there. But once you're on their website, they'll usually redirect you. But the website for the URC, which is a Unified Carrier Registration, is plan.ucr.gov. Plan.ucr.gov. Why do you care about this? It's required. The last I saw the fee for that was it's an annual fee, so don't get freaked out. But that's for $76 a year is what I remember the last number that they had. Because you have to stay, here's another thing. Whoever's helping you with your company, make sure someone is dedicated to admin, because the rules change frequently. And you don't want one of the trucks to get stopped that you brokered, and then they say, oh, well, we got the packet from this broker, and then your stuff is not up to date. You're operating illegal. So make sure whoever you dedicate to administration is consistently making sure that at least once a week, or once a month, that they're checking these websites to see if there's been any updates that needs to change. They changed, yes, Sapphire, they changed consistently. I remember a couple of years back, the price was $176 a year. So they flip back and forth. And I don't know how they make these decisions, above my pay grade, but that's what they do. Another thing that you need is your Form BOC-3. Form BOC-3. This is their designation of agent for service process. Now on this form, this is another form that you can't get around, it's required. BOC-3. On this form, guys, they will not allow you to use a PO box. You have to use a physical address, FYI. Again, they will not allow you to use a PO box, has to be a physical one. So to be a legalized freight broker, you have to have your surety bond for how much?
$75K,
And what are they searching to see if they're gonna award you?
personal credit,
And if your credit is real shabby,
pay up full.
yep, it's pretty, this is what they do. The second thing, after you have a surety bond, where are you going? What are you gonna apply for? Yes, MC. That's it. Motor carrier license. Who was that through?
FMCSA.
Boom. I love it. You guys are quick. Let me tell you. No shade to my college students when I'm Professor Grant, when I'm wearing that. But y'all catch on faster than them, okay? Just don't let them know I told you that, but it's true. Once you're there, what is the fee for the MC license?
$300.
300. Somebody put 350. No, it's just 300. And how long does it take for the application to come back?
4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. Now, that's a long time, but listen, you can't do nothing until they come back, because you need that to go to the next thing, which is your what?
UCR.
Right, because you need your MC number to enter into the database when you do UCR. What's the website you're going to with the UCR to apply?
Plan.ucr.gov.
Oh my God, I'm virtually hugging you guys. All right, and then what's your 4th step of this process? What's that form called? BOC-3. Okay, once you got those 4 steps, you are legally authorized to be a freight broker. You have made it. So I already told you about your payments with your carriers. It takes within 30 days. You gotta make sure you pay them for their service. Okay, here's another thing. When you're talking about paying your folks, let's say it's a month where you've had a lot of things come in from shippers, right? But they haven't been paying you on their 30 days yet. So they're behind. So that means that you still gotta pay these folks. What do you think is your defense to have financial solutions? Like, where would you go to hold your company over in between time?
Factoring.
Say it again.
Factoring.
Factoring is an option. So here is my tip. I highly recommend you don't do factoring.
Me too.
Let me tell you why. The amount of okay, let me give you a great example. I'm from China Grove, North Carolina, which is very rural country. So if anybody, so hear my heart with what I'm about to tell you. I live in Durham, but this is what I know. Have you ever been into a neighborhood where they have all these check cash in places? And you go in there with your check, but you come out with not what the check amount was because they charge some kind of fee. And the fee could be astronomical. That's what factoring companies do. They are gonna hold you over, but you're gonna pay them. What I recommend you do is to build a relationship with your bank, specifically your business banker at your bank, and go ahead and get a line of credit, a line of business credit. Because these are the folks who are going to see the income that's coming in, they're going to see the expenditures that are going out. You're building a relationship, and if you ever get into a jam where something is crazy, they would have financial solutions that you wouldn't even think to look for because it's at your financial institution. Does that make sense? And then you get to keep your own money because they're not trying to charge you nothing unless you just don't pay your, unless the line of credit gets crazy, then that's a totally different situation. But I highly, highly, highly recommend that. They will send you many emails saying, yes, listen, you gotta follow their rules, but at least you know the FDIC approved. So that's a winner. Don't forget, line of credit. All right, so now that we're established as a freight broker, freight broker, now we gotta talk through what does it look like to actually prospect? How many people like sales? Nobody? I hate
money.
me, like, somebody said something. Somebody said it's all right, somebody else said something else.
I do it for a living.
Oh, well, you ahead of the game. So,
I'm sorry, Diana, can you repeat your question? I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
how many people like sales? SALES. So if you like it, you're ahead of the game. If you're like me, it's not my necessarily place of expertise. You learn that you have to take it on because that's what you're doing. You're selling your services to a shipper that you have the carrier that can move the weight. So prospecting, that's where we're going next. Now that we're legal, let's see how we can get some business. So prospecting is simply the process of seeking out possible customers for your business. So have you ever been somewhere, right? Say a store, or can you charge the shipper a late fee? Depends on who the shipper is and what if you have a ongoing contract with them, meaning that you are working with them for the next. Generally speaking, they might sign a 1 year. I've never seen anything past a 1 year. Now, I'm saying it doesn't exist. I just haven't seen it. So if they sign a 1 year with you and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday you move in XYZ, with those types you can. But if it's somebody that you have just brokered and they said yes, you really don't have a relationship working to build one. So technically on that level, no. But you can get to that. So you're seeking out business. So have you ever been somewhere, guys, say a retailer, I'm gonna tell you the good one. Let's say the telephone store, like Sprint or T-Mobile, AT&T, and you go in there for one thing, but the salespeople are so good, they answer your question with a question that make you say a statement and you walk out with a phone. That's called leading. That's what you have to do in prospecting for your companies. You have to lead the question. I'll give you an example of leading. There was one time somebody was talking to a trucker, and they called him and was like, hey man, where you at? And so they said where they were. And he's like, oh, so did you just pick up such and such? He was like, no, actually I do such and such with this company. And I only pick up, it was a reefer truck. He said, I go to Alabama, and the reefer means refrigerator. He said, I only go to Alabama because I take sweet potatoes every week. They was like, really? Well, what company is that? So the person gave the company name, who the person was. So now you know the frequency, you know what they want, what they move the most. You just added a whole person to your prospect list because you led the conversation. See how easy that was? It was not rocket science. It's just the process of following the techniques. So let's start with make a list of who your immediate to-go people are. And when I say to-go people, I want you to make a list of people that you know that are truck owners, like they own their trucks. I want you to make a list of anyone that works at a factory. anyone that you know that's at, or either any factory that you know that does shipping. So for example, here in Durham, we have a Coca-Cola factory. It's not the hugest thing in the world, but you see trucks move in and out of it, right? So that will be a first place that we want to call. So I'm going to give you a few moments to make a list. And on this list, I want you to have 4 columns. You can write carrier shipper, contact, phone, or like contact name, phone, and notes. So carrier shipper, because you got a name if they're a carrier or if they're a shipper. Contact, that's going to be by their name. The phone number, and then notes. And I want you to write down as many people as you can think of that have trucks, any companies that are close by in your area, or they may not be in your area because they don't have to be because it's moving freight. Any companies you know that's moving freight. I don't care if it's food, I don't care if it's healthcare, if it's medication, who is moving freight. And then I want you to think about anyone you know that works at a factory. This can be your church members, it can be your neighbors. Make that list because we're starting your database now. Write those folks down.
What was that 4th column?
Notes. N-O-T-E-S. Sorry, I gotta put Thursday. I apologize too, guys, if I don't sound super clear. I went out today and that pollen got me. So just let me know if you need me to repeat. Few more minutes. Well, if you have none, I think you do. I think you're just not thinking about it hard enough. Everybody knows somebody that does one of those 4 categories, Mr. Hall. Whether it's somebody that was in the military with you, whether it was someone, and it doesn't have to be a big truck, right, guys? They can have a dually truck where they haul things, where they put a trailer on it. It could be a dry bed. It could be a box truck. It could be, I'm gonna tell you the latest freight that I've seen a lot move. People are buying cargo vans and they're making sure the back is empty, right? So that they can easily put things in it and move it fast locally. So think about it in that way, Mr. Hall. Any person you know. And if you don't know persons, that's when you think about the companies. What companies do you see that move freight? And that's not forget about livestock freight too. That's still considered freight. Amazon is a huge one. I cannot name the number of Amazon Prime trucks that come in my neighborhood per day. Walmart, absolutely. Think about food. Got Harris Teeter, who clearly like veterans. Just saying. They got veterans parking up front. Maybe someone to look at. Just open a warehouse around the corner. PFG. What's PFG? Courtney, don't leave me hanging. Performance Food Group. Oh, I don't know them, but there you go, guys. Where are you located, Courtney? Because I'm not familiar with that. Ah, gotcha. Cool. All right, guys. So as we're coming back together, I want to talk through some of the things we know that ship freight by industry. So let's start with food. When we think of food, what food, we just got one from Courtney, what other food, grocery stores ship freight? Name them out loud. You can add them to your list. You have to go look up the information, of course, but who do we think? I already said Harris Teeter because they clearly support veterans.
Food Line?
Food Line. Everybody knows about that line.
Kroger.
Kroger, yes. Kroger's not removed from everywhere. They're still in existence. Aldi, yes, yes, yes.
Sam's Club, First Time.
Sam's Club. Okay, so when we think about Sam's Club, let's think about their competitors. Who are some of Sam's Club's competitors?
Costco.
BJ.
Costco's, BJ's, yes. So thinking that, like, make these lists. Let me tell you this, while we're making these lists, guys, this is creating our database that you can later go and put into like an Excel sheet, or you can create whatever kind of database you want. It's totally your preference. But these are folks that you're adding to it, that you're building basically your own shipper directories. Isn't that amazing? Because you can also Google, there are free ones available. You can use the internet and you can Google shipper directories or shippers or manufacturers near me. Those are 3 top things that people do. Use the internet. I'll say them again. You can Google shipper directories. I highly recommend use the free ones. Do not get the ones you gotta pay for until you're at a point where you need those. They're good, but let's exhaust the free ones because we want to keep a low overhead. You can Google shippers and you can Google manufacturers near me. All right, so let's think about dealerships for cars, the car industry. Who moving freight? CarMax, big freight. Come on, what else we got? Tesla. Matter of fact, one of my guys only moves freight. He let me hold on one second. His truck holds 12 to 14 vehicles. He only does Tesla and Audi. So he's already set himself up that I only deal with premium brands. I love it. Who else do we have on here? Hold on, let me go to the chat. You guys are amazing. BMW, yes, that's my dealership, so I'm telling you they want people. Toyota, Carvana, yes, Carvana will deliver to your door. I don't know what Shift.com is. What's Shift.com? Tell us about that.
It's a lot of people up there. I think I saw it. It's a lot of carriers. I think a lot of shippers put a lot of stuff up there, and the carriers go up there, and it's like wait a minute, did they say Shift or Shift? Because I know one is like another Carvana.
Okay.
So one is Carvana, and I think that's it.
Yeah, this one's Shift, SHIFT.com.
Oh yeah, that's like Carvana. It's what do you call that? On-demand car delivery or something like that.
Nice. Okay, guys, so there's one to think about. So don't always just think about big dealerships. Think about other ones that ship. You ship. That's another one. So think about the car industry. All right, so here's one that we are all living in the world of COVID-19, which is an international, worldwide, that's what I'm looking for. A worldwide pandemic. So let's think healthcare. Who's moving healthcare? What companies?
Medical companies.
Yes, name some of them. Come on, we're digging deep here because we want to add these to our database. Pfizer. Come on.
Arnold.
Yes. You see these names? Okay, guys, make sure that you're looking in the chat and you're screenshotting some of these because these are really, really huge. I also want you guys to take time to think about Merck. Think about who's your biggest pharmaceutical distributors. You got Merck, you got GSK. Think about these folks. The biggest thing for you guys is that if you have reefer trucks, which are your refrigerator trucks, guess what? A lot of this medication has to stay within a temperature climate, right? So that's another angle for you. What else are we shipping in healthcare other than medicine? Masks, PPE. So PPE's got to come from somewhere and get to somewhere else, right? So who needs PPE? Who needs supplies? Who needs inventory?
Frontline workers, military.
Yes, medical clinics, frontline workers, hospitals. Think about the side clinics that are like urgent cares. What are these places? CVS, absolutely. I hope you guys are writing these things on your list because this is how you're building your database so that you can have people to prospect to. If there's an industry that you are passionate about, see if they are allowing people. This is the area I want to get into. Yes. See if that's an area that they're interested. Excuse me. If it's an area that you're passionate about, see if they move freight. So one of the things that I care about is I do re-entry work, right? So I don't have a desire necessarily to supply certain things to a prison because I do re-entry, right? They're coming out. So my concern is that when we have transitional homes, are we providing what's needed in the transitional homes? If we are, what does that look like? That may not be an 18-wheeler, that may be a cargo van. but that's still another way of transporting. I've been in healthcare for over 25 years. Excellent. Think about syringes. Think about the whatever the things are when they take your blood, and they got pretty colors, right? They put it over you. I don't know what the proper term is. You guys know. Gauze and all that. Let's look at the military, right? They do a lot of stuff themselves. However, there are contractors. So which branch of the military do you want to start looking at to see what kind of freight is due? This is the opportunity for folks that want to get those 40-foot trailers for heavy equipment, right? This is the opportunity for you to jump into that game like never before when it's needed at an all-time peak. Let's think about the construction industry. What do you think construction needs with logistics? Any type of construction, commercial or residential or any type of construction. What does construction need? Move equipment, absolutely. Lumber, heavy equipment, absolutely. Talk to me. What kind of trucks do you think we need? Building supplies. All of these things have to be transported. Flatbeds, exactly. I hope you guys are really, really hot shots. Yes. Hot shots means you're going from one place to the next, like hot shots, real fast. Those things do cranes. All of those things are a part of the industry. So once you're creating this list and you're getting really good with your presentation, you only learn that experience with the folks that you're comfortable with. That's why we wanted to start the list. Like these are the ones that you knew that like worked at a factory or owned a trucking company. You want to start having scripts with them first because you want to solidify your presentation before you move to the actual people you're prospecting, like your Harris Teeters, let's talk about retail. Like who's moving freight for retail? Look at all these Nike shoes, these Under Armour. What's some other brands that's moving? Nordstrom's. There's so many retailers that you can tap into that are moving freight. Because what happens when you go to, what's the store I was at the other day? He told me, we get a truck at Target. How many times have you been to Target and something was there that you wanted because you seen it online, but when you get there, it wasn't there? And then you ask the salesperson, like, can you tell me where it's at? And they're like, oh, actually, they didn't come on the truck. We get a truck every day. Have you ever heard that? Guys, those are people to put on your database. Those are people you reach out to. These are folks that you want to see if you can get some business. So let's talk about your prospect column. Is everybody clear about how to create your database, how to start your database? So we're not starting from scratch. You got some ideas. Okay, cool. Now, prospect column. When you're calling folks, more than likely they're working in a warehouse. I told you that earlier. So some of the titles, write this down. Some of the titles that people may have is transportation manager, shipping clerk, or dispatcher. General titles, nothing too heavy, but it may be what they carry so you can identify who that person is. So you always want to make sure, this is a problem I had early in business in my consulting firm. We're not talking about the logistics division, just like regular business, right? I had an issue of talking to people. I didn't even know it was an issue in true transparency. I had an issue of talking to people thinking that they were the decision makers or the ones that could sign the check, and they were not. So you always want to make sure you're talking to the right person that has the authority. That's why these titles are important. What's the 3 titles that's common? Shipping clerk, yep. Give me 2 more.
Transportation manager, dispatcher.
Perfect. Yep, you got it. Those are the three main ones. It can vary from company, but those are the 3 ones. Okay, so let's pretend we're on the phone. So we've been practicing with our friends that have companies, and they're getting it together. They understand what our presentation is. Now we're going to really prospect. So when we jump on the phone and I get the person, a receptionist generally answers, right? So the receptionist answers and says, hello, thanks for calling, whatever. How do you think you respond? This is you prospecting to a big company that you want to become a broker for.
You introduce yourself and ask to speak to the shipping clerk?
I love it. So when you introduce yourself, what do you say? It's okay, we're playing a role here, so you're totally fine. I love it. What do you want to make sure you include in your self-introduction?
Hi, this is such and such Freight Company LLC. May I talk to your shipping clerk?
I love it. Don't forget, sometimes people get so nervous, they just start talking and asking for the shipping clerk. And the people are like, who are you? Who are you with? Your name, these are the two important. Your name, the name of your company. Your name, the name of your company. Sometimes you can say shipping clerk, sometimes you can say warehouse manager, but because we don't know what the title is based off the company that we're calling, unless you did a Google search and you found it on their website, this is what I recommend. Hi, my name is Diana, and I'm calling from Crown for Success. Wondering if you could tell me who is in charge of shipping. How simple is that? Who is in charge? Because the reality is the receptionist may not know when you say warehouse manager because they used to calling them dispatcher, right? So we don't want to confuse the person on the phone because we want them in our favor. Would you mind telling me who was in charge of shipping? So usually they'll respond, generally speaking, oh, that's Paul Williams. Would you like me to transfer you? So when she says that's Paul Williams, what do you think you need to do with that information already?
Write down Paul Williams' name.
Listen, yes, Paul Williams needs to be added to your database, right? And you need to put in the notes what day this is and what time. Because we're tracking here with Paul Williams. You know the number you used was good, you got the name. All right, so she says when you transfer you, and of course you say yes. So the next person on the phone says, shipping, it's Paul Williams, how can I help you? What do you think you should say now? Now, mind you, you've been practicing this conversation with friends. You read, like, you want to seal this deal. What do you think you should say?
Reintroduce yourself, say your name and your company.
And what else you want to tell Paul?
That you would like to move his freight.
Come on, I don't know who even said that because there's too many people on here for me to see everybody on one screen, but you're absolutely correct. So as a rule of thumb, what I say is what you just said. Name, what your name is, you're moving freight. Your name, what your name is, the name of your company. And this is a phrase that I love, right? We have trucks in your area daily. We want to see what we need to do to help you move your freight. Who doesn't love that? You're already telling me you in my area, that you got truckers, and that it can work. Now, the reason I asked you earlier to write down the people you know that you have a truck, that have trucks, because you want to see if they'll be willing to be some of your carriers in the initiation phase. You can always grow, because you can always go to load boards and post things, but right now we're working internally before we get to those bigger levels. Does that make sense? Is that clear? We have trucks in your area daily. We want to know what we need to do to help you move freight. Now, what do you think Paul Williams' response is going to be? Because he only got so many.
He's gonna ask you for your name and number and how to get in touch with you.
He is, but before we get to that, there's two things that he can say. What's his responses?
Yes or no?
He might have.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes, it's super simplistic, right? What I want you guys to do is to get bummed out by the no's. Write this down. When you hear a no, think next opportunity. Right? That's so that you don't have this internal conflict and your confidence is gone. But immediately after you think that, I also want you to think that not right now. Have you ever heard that every delay is in your favor, or just because it doesn't happen right now doesn't mean it won't happen? You have to have this because you're going to hear so many no's. I want you to think about the person that's in the center of the malls. I don't care where you live, every mall has them. The people that are in the center of the malls. And they say, excuse me, ma'am, would you like to try this? Excuse me, sir, would you like to try? How many no's do you think they hear a day?
A lot.
So why do you think all the shippers are just going to say yes to you? Right? Let's take the emotion out of it and realize this is a real business. If Paul Williams says no, what do you think my response should be in my next action?
I would tell him thank you, and I would give him my information and tell him, if he's looking to contact someone in the future, he can reach out to me, or I'll reach out to him later on in the future to see.
So there's pros and cons. I love the fact that you said that thank you, because you want to say thank you and you want to get off the phone as soon as possible. Because you got to remember this too, guys. When you're talking about the shipping world of moving freight, you can't imagine how many calls they get like this per day of people prospecting, trying to get their business. So they don't want to be on with us long as is. So when they say no, we say thank you, we go back to our log and we make note of that he said no on this date at this time, right? Or just on this date. What I want you guys to do is when those no's come in, make yourself a habit of that you follow up every 2 weeks to a month. Because what you want to become is that little busy bee that didn't let up. Because just because the day today is a no does not mean next week will not be. They may have a whole new fleet of things that need to be moved, right? Don't give up. When he says yes, what do we do? Oh, let me back up 1 second. When you say thank you, also add in your time. Because if you want to show shippers that are in a crazy warehouse that their time is valuable to you, and for them to take the time to even answer your call is appreciated. So thank you for your time, right? If they say yes, what do you think the response should be?
Great.
Right, it is great. So, as you said, it is great. And we said, what can I provide for you? Now, this is where we're really going to get into the nitty gritty in step 2, because there are certain things that are required in your broker package to send to them. As a rule of thumb, you only give them what they ask for. This is not the time, as people do it, that you send cute brochures, that you send animated videos, that you send 4 or 5 links to different sites or images for them to see your work when you were out at the yard and you saw some folks picking up things and dropping them off. Not the time, not the place, not the energy. When we come back together on Thursday, we're going to start with what that packet includes. And one of those things is the rate sheet, which everybody wants to know about the money. So let me ask you this question before I go to your questions. How do you get paid as a broker? Because that's why you're doing it. Like, no, I mean, you might care. That's a good thing to care. But there's another thing if you want to be paid. Invoice, yes. But when you're invoicing, what are you invoicing to include yourself?
Brokerage fee.
How much freight, the time, how much freight you're moving, the distance you're moving it to the destination, all that factors into play.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Thoughts of how you're going to get paid from these operations you're doing? You just had to set up an office, pay these fees, file these forms, spend your time tonight and on Thursday with me. What else do you have to do? What else? How are you making sure that you're included? Service fee or charges percentage? Absolutely. So remember, you get paid off of the price that you negotiate with the shipper for the carrier. Rule of thumb, most of the times I've seen these folks negotiate, make sure they include for themselves at least 10%. Why is that not a lot of money, right? 10%, that's like I'm a church girl, so that's like a good tithe, right? It's not necessarily the one truck, guys. It's the quantity of this movement. So if you got one company that you're consistently doing work with 4 or 5 times a week, 10 loads per day, because you got multiple truckers driving it, and then you got another one with that same type of volume, that's where you can get an increase. That's when folks get to a point that they leave their 9 to 5 and they run their brokerage company full time. And then as they continue to move bigger and bigger, that's when they start hiring broker agents, which are people that work underneath them but are doing the same type of role. Those are way more details we'll get into, but that's what I want you to keep in mind. As we are dismissing for today, after we do questions, I do want to give you the homework assignment of make sure that you keep working on that database. Think of who you know. Again, Google shipper directories, shippers, and manufacturers near me. We talked through a lot of them. I want you guys to really spend a lot of time thinking about where we are in the world right now, which is COVID-19. So that means we need more of what? If you think about the, this is Sarah, okay. If you think about the ship that was holding up stuff, what is it called recently? It was holding up all the transports.
Evergreen.
Suez Canal or something.
Yes. Because it held it up for so long, they're already predicting that we're going to go through this crazy thing again with the toilet paper that we went through. Remember that crazy massacre? Like, I don't even know why people were buying toilet paper like that. I still don't understand it to this day. But think about who supplies that. That's more stuff that's going to need to be shipped. I don't know if you guys have noticed the influx of prices of food in grocery stores, right? I went to Harris Teeter Sunday. Do you know the avocados are $2.79 a piece? $2.79. So guys, pay attention. So that means the food, the farmers, what's going on for the farmers for this price? That's freight that's got to be moved. Have you seen the big push with hemp, CBD oil? That's a movement. I had one of our truckers that literally showed up to a site, and he was so freaked out. And he was like, "What is this?" The farmers were cutting the hemp from the stem and loaded it on the truck, and that had to be transported because it has to go somewhere to be processed to make it to the CBD oil. Think about what's happening right now and what's needed. I think we got a hand raised. Ooh, excuse me.
Jervis has a question.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I didn't introduce myself earlier. My name is Juvez. I, at one point, had my own car hauling business. I, too, had a Ford F-350 dually that I had a 3 car hauler with. I noticed I used to go on Central Dispatch and get most of my loads, but I noticed that as far as the broker end, myself, the transporter, I spent the time with transporting the cars from like the Raleigh area to Alabama, the gas, as far as diesel. But a lot of times I noticed that I was making less than the actual broker. So if I looked at the board, it would say that maybe it paid $1,300 or like maybe $900 for that particular car, but I made $300 or $400 for that car, which lets me know that I actually made less than the broker.
That happens. That's why I say be very, very knowledgeable of which role positions you best, right? So I had someone that called us from some upstate state, and they wanted us, and some brokers are greedy, whoever said it on our phone, absolutely. And that's the ones you don't even deal with, the ones that don't really want to be a relationship and make sure that everyone is treated fairly. But the people from the upstate state phoned and they wanted XYZ, right? And the reason we didn't go through with it is the same reason. They were so greedy. They expected our trucks to move on demand when they did not even want to have a set contract of a percentage. So if you're going to be using this company all the time, there needs to be a set percentage, right? Or a set rate. I had a trucker the other day, an owner-operator, that phoned me and said that he is having an industry situation with the folks he's working with. He's been working with them for years. It sounds since COVID's here, people are getting greedy, so be super cautious. But he said they changed their contracts to where it's a set rate of $50 for every load they broker for them. He was super excited because you know what? $50 ain't no change, ain't no real money, opposed to the percentage of what that load could be, right? So they did that with him out of relationship because they want to continuously use their truck. So that's a very good point. Make sure you read your contracts and make sure you're not with greedy people because they will starve you and it will not be worth your time. Very good. Other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?
So I have a question about the license for the MC. To be a freight broker, do you have to have a certification with the motor carrier? Because I have my MC, I already have all that stuff, but I was just wanting to know, do you have to have some type of certification in order to apply for the freight broker license?
No, you do not. That's an additive for you wanting to learn the ropes behind the scenes. It's not required by the governing body.
Okay.
That's your preference of, you kind of know how like when we go to college and we love to put the alphabet behind our name when we get all the degrees. It's that thing. It could give you value depending on what kind of shipper you're talking to, right? Mm-hmm. Some shippers are like, they're interested in that. Other ones don't care as long as you've got this MC, you've got the surety bond, like you've got those regulated requirements.
There's so many people that try to get you to buy stuff that you don't need when you become authority. When you first get your authority, I had people calling me all out the woodwork and trying to get me to do this and do that. And found out that now I don't need half of that stuff that they was trying to get me to do.
It's the same thing. That same spirit follows various industries. So one of the other things we do in our administrative arm of the company is we do LSA, loan signing agents. And so I remember when I was having my team to go through and become a notary, because that's the first step in the state of North Carolina. Other states don't require you to go sit in the class for 8 hours. But go do that, and then after you pass that test, then you gotta go and apply for these other things. And there were certain folks that came out of the woodwork, same thing, was like, take my trainings, and trainings were like $1,000, $1,500. And people that take it, and they love it, but the reality is, yes, the training helps to learn this process, but it's not regulated by the governing bodies.
Okay, thank you.
So if you already have like I say with my limousine company, I already have a DOT number. I never really went and got my MC authority because at the time I knew I wasn't going to be truly traveling outside of the state of North Carolina. So I never got my MC authority. But if I do get it up under my limousine company, would that authority work for the freight brokerage inside, or would I have to get a whole new name, whole new DOT, whole new authority, the whole 9 yards?
Not necessarily. Have you heard of the umbrella approach?
Yeah.
So you can kind of follow that one. So that's how we orchestrate it, right? So the consulting firm, Crown for Success Global Consulting, which is a project managing and consulting firm. But in that firm, we have a speaking, writing, and development division that clearly does what it says. And then we have a logistics division. And so logistics does that. So while it's still the same umbrella, they have their different functions, but it still covers us legally and financially if something should happen and we need to give a credit towards that. Great question. Great question. What kind of software do I need as the whole thing may come through, as a freight broker? The stuff that you already have on your computer, right? You can, your Microsoft Word, Microsoft Office or Suite. You can use Excel to create your database, or you can use Word, what have you. The only thing that you would have to pay for as far as like a software, which is not really a software, it's more of a database, would be like the load board. And when you're paying for the load boards, you usually do them either as monthly or annual fees. And different load boards, they range. You can get a load board from anywhere from $30 a month to ones that are $100 and something a month. But the reason for the variation is what they're offering. So let me give you an example. You know, if you go to Taco Bell, they're gonna throw your food out the window, have a good day, thank you, bye, the window shut. But if you go to Chick-fil-A, they say, thank you, my pleasure. Is there anything else we can offer you? That's the quality and the variations of the opportunities you'll get in those load boards, depending on how much you pay. That's a legit real thing. Do I recommend going for the highest one? No, start where you are and grow. I will say this, people are very obsessed with Amazon right now. Why? Because Jeff Bezos is making crazy money. His Amazon trucks are everywhere. The 18-wheelers, he has monopolized the system in a way, and he's built his own technology that all you literally have to do is your carriers can do everything from their cell phones at this point, right? But here's what I'm going to tell you about Amazon to give you a heads up. While there's always freight and always availability, the rates with Amazon are really, really low. So if you're not caring about rates and you just want to move freight, they will be great for you because they will give you quantity. If you want to be like some of the folks I know that want to negotiate for $3 a mile, where you're talking about some money that can actually make a difference in a quicker period of time, then you may want to go with some of the other shippers, right? So you got to think about it. Think strategically with this. Where, when you think about your trucks, your equipment, right? The equipment of your carriers, you're going to be asking them, like, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? Because you're building relationships with them as well. So if you got a carrier that you're always using, and they say, hey, I don't want my trucks in the mountains. I only want to stay on different types of planes. And that's okay, because they understand that being in the mountains is going to tear their trucks up faster, which makes a higher maintenance bill for them that they don't want to deal with. Right? So as you're building the shippers, you're building your carriers too, so you'll know what to look for. You know how, because you're the negotiating piece. You'll know what makes more sense to make sure you maximize the opportunity. Because most of these trucking companies, sometimes as an owner operator, they still have other drivers for their other equipment. So sometimes if they say I'm a small business, they don't have the one truck. They may have 3 trucks and 2 other drivers, right? So that's payroll they have to meet. So they want the trucks to move. Remember this, never forget it. Nobody makes money when trucks are sitting. I have seen so many people buy dump trucks, buy 18-wheelers, buy Ford, the dually trucks, the ones with like the horses in the back because they're so big, buy 40-foot trailers, and they're making payments on this stuff every month, going out buying brand new cabs, but they have no business. Now you're just creating more debt. Don't be that. That's why this prospecting list is key. But remember this, you cannot prospect until you are legally put in place as a freight broker. That is a law. You cannot prospect calls until you are legally a freight broker. And that's those 4 steps that we talked about earlier. Is getting a used truck suggested? Absolutely, as long as you inspect it, right? It's the same as getting a used car. You test drive it, bring somebody with you that's a good mechanic that can look over and make sure it's good. I see no problem with it. It may be the best truck you have, because just because it's brand new, it can come off that line very faulty. And matter of fact, some of my guys actually like the older trucks more than the new ones, to be honest with you. If I'm not driving, what's the best way to find carriers? Carriers, you can actually start your own network. There are networks, or you can join networks, For carriers, they join groups like Facebook groups. They hang out at their own yards. There's a good percentage of the owner-operators that are carriers. They park their trucks at the same yards, right? So if you spend a Saturday and just stop by a yard and introduce yourself and start talking to some of them, you could come away with 4 carriers that may be interested in using your services. Because most neighborhoods don't have it where you can park the trucks in the neighborhood. So they have to put them somewhere. So there are paid parking lots that they use, and some of them have friends that have just big acreage, and they all park out there. So those are other ways. Facebook groups. LinkedIn is actually a really good one. You never know who you can meet there. And then connecting in spaces like this is also very beneficial. Perfect. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, or concerns before we head out?
I just wanted to tap in at the end about the training for the freight brokers, because there's so many out there, you don't know what's legit, I don't know who's doing what, so that's my only thing, because I'm new to it. My husband is the driver, and I'm trying to get in and understand a little bit more. Yes, ma'am. So, Courtney, what I would recommend is if you could email Sarah, whose email address you guys have with the institution, with Fayetteville State University. Thank you, Sarah. I can get the email address from her, and I can email you over options that you can at least scroll through and look through, from the ones that are free on YouTube to people that have paid services. And what I'll also do is the last day of our training, which is Thursday, because it's a 2-part, I'll actually have a resource document that'll be up, and you folks can screenshot it. You can do whatever you want with it, so you can utilize it. So on both ways, we can make sure we get it to you. And matter of fact, what I may do to make life easier, Sarah, if it's okay with you, I can just share that resource guide at the end, and then you can email it. Can it be emailed out to all participants, or how does that work, Sarah?
I'll put it in Dropbox and send them the link so they can download it.
Perfect. How about that? There we go. Everybody have access to it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Awesome. You guys have been great. If you have nothing else from me, I'm gonna let you go and have dinner, or well, maybe it's too late for some folks to eat, but if you're like my mom, doesn't eat after 7. But for the rest of us, I appreciate your time. Part 2, we're gonna dig into some more nitty-gritty things so we can make sure that you're getting your money. You're most welcome. There's something in there, Sarah, asking about registration part 2, but I'm not really sure.
Oh, that was me.
Oh,
Yep.
Hilarious.
That's okay.
Perfect.
Hi,
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you on Thursday. If you have any questions, write them down, because you'll get to ask on Thursday too.
Hello?
Yeah.
My question is, I put a message in the chat. My video kind of midway through, it kind of logged off. Is there a way to get the recorded version so I can get the information that I missed?
Yep, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send out the recording to everyone that was logged in tonight. Just can have it as kind of a supplement.
Alrighty, thanks, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you guys. We'll see you on Thursday.
Have a good night.
You too.